Welcome back, everybody. Your teams, the biggest stories. Join Mike Davis and Mariah Janos live at 2 p.m. daily here on Silver State Sports as they tackle the biggest stories in Vegas sports. And joining us to help out with that right now is Jesse Granger from the Athletic Las Vegas. Hey, Jesse, I know there's a lot of talk with the Raiders. Golden Knights, pretty big news, too, and maybe not for all the best reasons with that home loss to the Edmonton Oilers last night. What were your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, this team's struggling right now. They're struggling to generate offense. They have been falling behind in games. That wasn't the case last night. Last night, it was a more even game. But the same trend that we've seen from these last few losses has continued, and that is that when it's a neutral game script, this team has a hard time getting in on the forecheck. They have a hard time generating enough offense. Now, when they've fallen behind in games and teams sit back on their heels to protect a lead, they have been able to generate offense, and that's why they've got as many points as they do. It's why they're only 1 point out of the Pacific Division. But going into the playoffs, a team that hopes to go on a long run, that is not a recipe. Coming from behind is not a recipe to win in April and May in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So it's concerning. And last night they played against an Edmonton team that has had a hard time keeping the puck out of the net. They've given up an average of almost 5 goals a game over their last 12 games. And the Golden Knights weren't able to generate much offense at all. So yeah, it's concerning time for the Golden Knights right now.
Well, that's why we have you on. I'd like you to break it down with me. And I enjoyed your trade deadline article on The Athletic. A longtime subscriber here, longtime reader of your work. And you mentioned it being a quiet trade deadline for the Golden Knights. Quiet in relation to trade deadlines past, right? They still made some moves, but as you wrote, not the splashy, glitzy welcome to Vegas trades like you guys are all used to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this team has swung for the fences at the trade deadline quite a bit over their 9 years in the season. You can go all the way back to season 2 when they brought in Mark Stone, who's obviously the captain and a big part of the Stanley Cup championship. A couple of years ago, they made big trades for Noah Hannafin and Tomas Hertl. And part of it is just because of all those trades, they're starting to run out of high-end draft capital, and the prices were expensive across the league. You look and like Nick Waugh went for a first-round pick from Toronto. That just tells you that's a fourth-line center. Just tells you how high the market price was for these players. And I think the Golden Knights, they don't have their next 2 first-round picks. They sent them both to Calgary for Hannafin and Rasmus Andersson. So they went into this deadline without as much ammunition as they typically have, and I think that's part of the reason that they weren't involved in any of those big moves. They made a couple minor additions in Cole Smith and Nick Dowd. Depth players don't score a ton. They've combined for only 10 goals this season. They're veteran defensive guys that bring some physicality and some defensive responsibility, but certainly not the additions that Golden Knights fans are used to. And if you're a Golden Knights fan and you're looking around the Western Conference, Colorado added 2 great centers in Nazem Kadri and Nick Waugh. Minnesota loaded up. They bought in Bobby Brink and Foligno and a couple other guys. And it's the Golden Knights certainly didn't make up any ground on those contenders in the West when you look at the additions.
A lot of questions have come in from the viewers, and we'll get to those in a second if you don't mind. But I want to have a little fun with you. Like you said, 9 seasons in the league. You've been covering them a long time. Or you've been covering them since day one?
Yep. Before they had a team name, when it was just Vegas Wants Hockey. They weren't even the Golden Knights yet when I started covering them.
Okay. Well, they seem like a team that's really fun to cover. I mean, we've had their guests on this show, but I've never covered them day to day like you do. And in your article, you mentioned about the mascot going out to the airport and dancing girls. And what are some of the things they've done to welcome new acquisitions to town? Because, teams don't do that, but Vegas does.
Yeah. It's Vegas, right? Everything's a show in Vegas. Everything's got to be big and bombastic, and they kind of go along with the theme of the city of Las Vegas. Yeah, it's a fun team to cover because there's never a dull moment. They've been good most of the time. Even when they're bad, they're making huge trades to try to fix things. So yes, it is an entertaining team to cover. There's never a dull moment. In terms of what they do to welcome players in, usually it's a horde of cheerleaders with pom-poms and the Gila Monster mascot chants. They all show up at the airport. They give them a welcome. I don't remember if it was Max Pacioretty, maybe. They flew him around on a helicopter. They flew him to the Grand Canyon. They flew him down the Strip. They like to make a big entrance. And then you've got all of the casino marquees, like going down the Strip. Each casino's got its giant screen that's advertising what shows are playing that night, what restaurants to eat at. They all typically will get together and put up "Welcome to Las Vegas" with a image of the new player in a Golden Knights jersey. So yeah, they like everything in Vegas. They like to make it flashy.
That's awesome. From the audience, John in Winnipeg says, nice collection. John Ohm. He says, nice collection of stuff behind the guest. Wowzers. In a second, and if we have time, we will get to that. Allie in Texas writes in. She says, hey, RP and chat, checking in on a quick lunch. Hope everyone is well. We are, Allie, and nice moves by your Stars ahead of the trade deadline. Jason in Red Deer would like to know what you can tell us about the crease situation for the Golden Knights now in the stretch drive into the playoffs and what Carter Hart's status is, if you don't mind, Jesse.
Yeah, Carter Hart, it appears he's still a ways away from returning. They haven't said whether he's skating or not. His pads are in his locker in the locker room. That's about all the information I've got in terms of that until he's on the ice. Once he's on the ice, we'll know that we're probably a couple weeks away. It's going to be interesting because they've got 3 healthy goalies once he's back. Adin Hill, obviously, the big contract. This is the first year of a 6-year deal, $37.5 million. So he's just starting a big extension. It hasn't been a good season for him. He started off slow. He got hurt. He came back. He didn't look himself when he came back. I think he's started to look a little better recently, but the numbers are not good for Adin Hill. I mean, he's got an .860 save percentage. There's no denying that this has not been a good season for Adin Hill. Akira Schmid has been kind of the one constant who's been there all season for him. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad. He's kind of just been keeping the ship afloat. The team's second place in the Pacific Division, as bad as the division is, and I think a big reason for that is the steadying presence that Akira Schmid has brought. We spoke with Kelly McCrimmon after the deadline. Someone asked him if he thought about trading for a goalie, and he basically said, look, the goaltending has to be better, but I think we have good goalies. And I tend to agree with him. I think Adin Hill I don't think he's an elite goalie, but I think he's a top 15, top 20 goalie in the NHL when the defense in front of him is playing well. And he hasn't been that this year, but I think to trade for another goalie, to add it to those 3 contracts they already have, you're just compiling your problem. I think if the Golden Knights are going to have the season they hope to have, they're going to go on a run, it's going to be down to Adin Hill being at his best. I think maybe Carter Hart can come in, but honestly, what we saw from Carter Hart was not very good. He made some flashy saves. He made some visually impressive saves, but he plays outside of his posts a lot. He's very aggressive with his challenging. It's not really the style of goaltending that I think fits behind this Golden Knights defense the best. I think more of a positional blocking goalie like Adin Hill, and we saw that during their cup run and honestly, even in the 2 playoff series since then. So to me, their playoff hopes and their hopes of going on a deep run ride on, can Adin Hill get to his game and play at his best when they need it?
Jesse Granger is with us from the Athletic Las Vegas, and I just remembered you're a goalie and I'm a goalie. It's fun to talk goalies. Let's just say this. If all 3 were healthy, who start at 100%, who's starting game 1, in your opinion?
Adin Hill. I think Akira Schmid's been better this season. I think he's in better form, but this team trusts Adin Hill. Sean Burke, excellent goalie coach for the Golden Knights. He's done a great job here. He loves Adin Hill, and he loves his compete level. And in the playoffs, that's where Adin Hill kind of has been. I mean, the guy's got a .917 save percentage over his career in the playoffs. Last year, even though they lost to Edmonton in the second round, it wasn't Adin Hill's fault. I mean, the final game was 0-0 going into overtime. What more can you ask from your goalie? The Oilers finally got one by him. They didn't score a goal in the final 2 games of that series. So this is a goalie who is having a rough year, but he has performed incredibly well in the playoffs. The chaos around him, the physicality around the crease, to me, that brings the best out of Adin Hill. Is it a guarantee he's going to flip the switch and suddenly be good when he hasn't been for months? No, but to me, that's your best chance.
I like it. Good answer. And as you said, he has done it before. Arlen Bruce checks in, former Kansas City Chief, 2-time Grey Cup champion. This isn't necessarily in your wheelhouse, Jesse, nor mine. He has like a sports betting question, but he just says, how do analysts narrow down who will win the Stanley Cup? He says, in football, it's all on the quarterback. How is it in the NHL? I don't know. I've won some pools in the past. I go on special teams, definitely goaltending, who's hot going into the playoffs. I would say there's a lot of factors when you're trying to figure out a winner and sort of set odds.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, honestly, hockey is such a high variance sport that we see upsets all the time because you only need a bounce here or there and all of a sudden the game changes. I like to rely on expected goal share is a number that the nerds love casuals that don't appreciate analytics. They're not super into it. But at the end of the day, all it's telling you, expected goal share, is basically just telling you which team's controlling the possession, which team is controlling the territory. And in hockey, when you need bounces, especially in the playoffs when defenses tighten up, give me the team that has the puck the most in the offensive zone and is going to give itself the most opportunity to have those chances. A team like the Colorado Avalanche absolutely dominate a number like that. I'll take that team typically.
Well, since we're on the topic, I looked it up this morning. FanDuel has the Golden Knights number 4 and the Oilers number 5 in bet Stanley Cup futures. Like, would that shock you? Like, I'm a McCrimmon believer. Okay, I've been following him for decades. I don't know Bruce Cassidy as well, but I feel like people just think the Golden Knights are going to pull it together when they need to. Are you in that camp?
No. I don't think this team's good enough to win the Stanley Cup. They've in their last 16 games against playoff opponents, they have 1 win and 15 losses. And that is a heck of a stat. I mean, this team has the only reason they're really even in the playoff chase, to be honest, is because of how bad the Pacific Division has been. Since we've gone to 4 divisions, we've never seen a team win a division with less than 100 points. That's for sure going to happen in the Pacific this year. None of these teams are going to get to 100. We might see one that's closer to 90 points. And I just think now they do have an easier path because of that. The path, they don't have to go through the gauntlet that is the Central Division. If you're Minnesota, you're staring down Dallas in the first round and Colorado in the second round, and then Edmonton or Vegas in the third round. Like, that is, the Golden Knights don't have to go through that. They're probably going to get an easier path. But this team hasn't shown me this year that they're good enough to hang with the best teams in the league. And this week we saw that. Minnesota came to town. I thought Vegas played a better game than they had been playing, and they weren't really close with Minnesota. And then last night, we talked to the players after. Brett Howden and Noah Hannafin both said, we thought we played a great game. And yet they lost to Edmonton, and I didn't think it was particular. Like, I thought Edmonton was clearly the better team. So to me, until they prove to me that they can beat the best teams in the league, I have a hard time believing that this team is a real, true Stanley Cup contender this year.
Well, let me tell you, bravo. You're not sitting there waving black and gold pom-poms. You're saying it the way that it is, which is pretty rare these days. So kudos to you for that. So I guess why I enjoy reading your stuff and follow you as much as I do. Since I have you and the viewers pointed it out, the stuff on your bookshelves, is there anything of significant historical significance to you behind you, why it's on there?
Well, I collect all these bobbleheads. They're pretty cool. They're not really significant. I would say my favorite one is this Marc-Andre Fleury there's a donut. He's sitting on a donut right there, and it counts down his shutouts. So it's got his all-time shutout. You can like move it as he gets more shutouts. That one's pretty cool. My goalie mask behind, that's the mask I used to wear when I played. It was an old one that I had retired. I sanded it down and painted it myself and got the Athletic logo on there. So I'm pretty proud of that one. First goalie mask I've ever painted. But yeah, not a ton of significance, just fun stuff that I've collected. They give you merchandise when you're covering games. So I've got a bunch of it.
Of course. Well, if I may, this mask over my shoulder was my dad's from the 1960s. That thing's legit. Well, you've seen the old goalies, and he was one. Yeah. Rich in Edmonton writes, and he goes, honest analysis. Great stuff. So I just want to pass that along, Jesse. People are appreciating the way that you covered the team. So that the playoffs started today, it would be Vegas and Edmonton, but for the longest time, it would have been Vegas, Utah. And Bill Foley told me once, as I'm talking to you right now, that he wanted a geographical rivalry with Arizona. And unfortunately, the Coyotes never held up their end of the bargain on that. Do you think there's something there to be had with Utah?
Certainly. It's obviously close. Whenever they play in Salt Lake City, I make the drive up there. It's only about 5.5 hours north of us. And what's interesting is because there wasn't a team in Utah, the Golden Knights really made they tried to make that their territory early on in their franchise. I mean, they would do preseason bus trips up there with players and meet with kids out on rinks, and they would play a preseason game, usually once a year in Utah. They had the TV rights up there. Obviously, that all changed when the Mammoth showed up, and now Vegas has kind of switched its course, and now they're trying to take over Arizona. But the point being, there were a lot of people probably in Utah that rooted for the Golden Knights prior to getting the Mammoth. Obviously, once they get their own team, they're gonna switch their allegiance. But yeah, there's quite a bit of history there for such a team that's only been here 9 years, and Utah's looked good. They've won a few in a row. The team looks hot. Karel Vejmelka. I'm the goalie guy. Karel Vejmelka is super impressive. I don't think we give him enough credit. When you look at the workhorses around the league, you think of Andrei Vasilevsky, Connor Hellebuck, UC Saros. Karel Vejmelka is playing more games than any of them, and he's handling it well. That Utah team they don't have any the high end talent isn't there. They don't have the elite first line, but they've got 4 good lines that can skate well and forecheck. That would be a really fun series. Sign me up for 7 games of Vegas, Utah.
I can't say Vejmelka, first to 30 wins. Easy to look at, not easy to spell. They're telling me we only have a little more than a minute. Is that correct, Corey? Because that's off timing of normal. But I think if the rivalry, all it would take is for both teams to be good, right? At the same time. That's what, and some playoff meetings.
Yeah, I mean, the Golden Knights have kind of they had an early rivalry with San Jose. That was the big one. They played them 2 years in a row in the playoffs. First, Vegas eliminated them. Then the Sharks eliminated Vegas in that dramatic Game 7 with the 5-minute major and all that. That was kind of the rivalry. Then the Sharks sort of went into a rebuild, and the Golden Knights beat up on them, and that rivalry kind of died. Lately, I would say the Oilers is probably the biggest rivalry for this team, just because they've met a couple times in the playoffs. The teams do not like each other. That's one thing. And right now, that's the playoff series we're set to have. Vegas-Edmonton would be great. There's plenty of animosity there. There's star players on both sides, but Utah could definitely jump into the mix.
I apologize if they cut us off, Jesse. Just there might be a timing issue here. So I'll apologize in advance. So how are we for time? Okay, you'd mentioned 2 minutes a couple minutes ago, so that's good. Yeah. Do you dabble with the Raiders at all, Jesse, or are the Golden Knights strictly your thing there in terms of coverage?
Yeah, I'm just a hockey guy. I watch football. I'm a Denver Broncos fan, born and raised in Colorado Springs, just south of Denver. So I do not like the Raiders. I root against them. But so I follow them just from a fan. I'm a football fan, but I do not cover the NFL in any way.
That's cool. Well, I'll tell you what, the reason I ask is I'm always fascinated in the Raiders versus Golden Knights dynamic in your town. Because the Golden Knights are the number 1 team, and a lot of people wouldn't believe that, right? But everybody tells me that's the case.
They certainly are from a diehard represents Vegas perspective. Now, this town loves the NFL. It's every city in America loves the NFL. The NFL is king. There's no question that the NFL is the top dog everywhere. And there are a lot of NFL fans in Vegas, but I think that in terms of being loyal and being a Vegas team, the Golden Knights certainly are they have more diehards. They were a brand new team. They weren't a team that came from somewhere else. And I also think that a lot of people in Vegas had stronger football allegiances to their previous team, so they weren't as willing to jump on board with the Raiders, whereas maybe the hockey allegiances weren't quite as strong, so it was easier to jump onto the Golden Knights when they came to town.
Thank you for the explanation. And we officially are at 30 seconds. Tell people where they can follow your stuff, Jesse.
Yeah, just at The Athletic. I'll be writing some Golden Knights stuff. We'll be writing more about the Golden Knights as the playoffs get near, and lots of goaltending stuff. Going to have goalie tandem power rankings. I do that periodically throughout the season. Now that the trade deadline has passed, there were no goalie trades. I was expecting maybe 1 or 2. There were none. So I'm going to rank the teams as they stand going into the playoffs. Who's got the best goalie tandems?
Can't wait. Well, I'll be waiting with bated breath for that. From the audience, Rich in Edmonton says Vegas could be the Oil's biggest rivalry at this time. Jason in Red Deer says the irony of Utah becoming the rival instead of the Coyotes is they are the same team. LOL. Yes, well, for sure. All right, Jesse, thanks for this. You've gained a lot of new fans here today. Keep up the great work.
Thanks for having me.
Jesse Granger from The Athletic, Las Vegas, checking in, talking Golden Knights. We'll be back in a moment with a sports update and viewer takeover. You're watching the RP Show across Nevada on Silver State Sports and across Canada on Game Plus TV.